Hey, this is Shaun with the Go Tennis Podcast, powered by Signature Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And in your app, if you happen to be listening to this as opposed to watching it on YouTube, if you're watching, click the follow and subscribe. Whatever those buttons are, click them all. And if you're listening, audio only, make sure you hit that follow button and find the review section. We'd love to earn your 5-star reviews. Today, this is 10 Minutes of Tennis with world-renowned tennis pro, tennis coach to the stars. No, I don't know that we can say that, can we? Have you ever? Yeah, you've taught famous people, but we won't worry about that today. It's just the high energy of the morning. I apologize. So Justin Yeo, Australian in Puerto Rico. I think right now he's Australian in the locker room, but that's all right. We will
Yeah.
get started today with mental health. Now, very broad topic when I just say mental health, but my question is this actually an epidemic, or is this just life and maybe there's a little bit of overreaction going on?
Wow. Well, you hit a big topic right there because you came in with the epidemic feeling. Um, Epidemic, we can talk about COVID, right? So, yes, uh,
Didn't help.
I, I think we all need to identify something, and that makes it very easy. There are two different types of mental health going on right now in conversation.
Okay.
There are two parts, meaning the average Joe or the amateur tennis player or the natural community player, as people talk about it, is getting a lot of mental health better, like by playing tennis. So, one of the most important things after the epidemic was how quick tennis came back and how many people started to identify that tennis was helping their mental health because of the antisocial. The other advantage with the epidemic was tennis was something that people could do outside because they were distanced from each other and still be able to do something. So mental health was in the epidemic, and even nowadays is still very good for the community tennis player. On the other side, where it's a big subject, is on the professional tour. What people are not identifying and people aren't talking about it enough, except there was one that talked about it very well, was Alcaraz. Alcaraz came out as a youngster, was explaining the grueling tour of having to play so many tournaments and how hard it is on the body. What we do have to understand is it's extremely hard on the brain as well, mentally, to be able to keep up that kind of continuity all the way, all year round. And because of the amount of tournaments, so a lot of best of three tournaments, there was a lot. You got Master Series, you got thousands, you got 250s, you got, so there's a lot of tournaments now at the highest level. And if they can't keep it up, then there's more players coming up underneath that are pushing it harder and harder. That the better players have to keep up with a deep calendar of tournaments. And that never used to be there. It used to be more the big Grand Slams and then lots of little tournaments in between. But the bigger, like the point system has made it a lot tougher on players nowadays. And that's what they're talking about, mental health. And it's become a big thing. Osaka, Curios, even I raised a little girl at the age of 5 who just made it into the main draw of the Australian Open, Destiny Ava. And Destiny, love you, love you. I know the family very well, but she went through some mental stuff because of family. And so again, there's all these big conversations about mental health on the pro tour level that people are getting confused because when it comes down to the community player or the amateur player, it benefits very differently. And so that's where I think needs to be described. And we're going to try to do that in a few podcasts to make people understand the difference between the two and the advantages of them each.
And I love that distinction because you get a chance to say, hey, mental health. We assume, oh, I guess we got to talk about Osaka now. Where it
Right,
isn't really that. It is just, hey, how is your mental health? How is your
right,
physical health? How
right,
is your emotional health? How's your family? Is it healthy? Right? We
right.
can ask these questions. And for the social player, is what we call them, the social
Yep,
player, maybe even me, going out and
yep,
playing tennis is good for me. I get some exercise. I get my vitamin D. I feel good. I
yep,
can go play with my friends and hit the ball around and let out some frustrations.
yep.
But it doesn't
And
necessarily.
don't want to,
sorry, I'm
And
not
I
I'm
want to
not
add to that
going through
real
that
quick,
grueling schedule like the pros are. It's a
right?
different thing. They're
Right.
running a business.
Right, right. And what I want to add to that too is tennis allows, the biggest thing is the disconnect. Like there's everyone these days is so connected, so wired all the time. Once you get on that court, you're in your own world. No one's bothering that world, and you can just, it gives you a chance to refocus, reboot, re-get everything going. And so it really does help mental health for the amateur tennis player to be playing tennis. And the other thing too, we can't, this isn't something that hasn't been around, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I just did a Tony Robbins course and I spoke to Tony just briefly, and he talks about Agassi back all the way back in the 90s, where he helped him regain, right, his feeling on the court of being able to win again. And then he rebooted and went from here in the rankings to back to the top. And Tony talks about that heavily. And so way back, and then I can talk about even John Roddick's a great friend of mine, and Johnny talks about Marty Fish, because Marty Fish, when they went through the academy together with Andy, was one of the talented players of the whole group, and he just mentally just wasn't there. He just couldn't do everything that everyone else could do. And Marty talks about he came back, gave it everything he could, showed his talent, but it took everything out of him to get to that top 10 level, and he just couldn't manage it because mentally it was really tough for him. So it, it is a very different subject when we're talking on the professional side versus the amateur side, and that's where I think there's a lot of confusion. I would love to get Murphy Jensen's point of view. Murphy's things with mental health that's partnering with Go Tennis, and Mr. Shaun Boyce, the master of Go Tennis. So I think we've got really cool stuff coming up down the wire in the next few podcasts if we can get more organized. I'm trying my best to see if I can get Kyrgios to talk, and uh, Ash Barty. Ash Barty will tell you some of the things that she went through, because she had the challenge of breaking off the tour and coming back to the tour to try to do it on her own terms. And then she left again on her own terms because she wanted to do family. So mentally, that's a whole thing as well, because she left at the top. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
would you leave? You know? And so there's a lot of conversation here about mental health that people are getting confused about. And I'd like to do some sessions to try to get that clarity for people to understand there are benefits on both sides, and there's a weakness, hard weakness, and these are the reasons why. So,
Yeah, and good conversations to have for those of us playing on the weekends and getting our exercise this way. But then also maybe some good
yeah,
conversations to have to say, why are some of these young adults struggling? But it's not a surprise. We've
yep,
seen it in the movie industry when young stars, all of a sudden you've got Macaulay Culkin, or you've got these young kids that all of a sudden are wealthy and famous, and they're 13 years old and they have no idea how to handle it, and neither do their parents. So
yep,
we've got these
yep,
17, 18-year olds that come in and they're making some good money. They're having to run a business and make hard decisions and train and
yep,
work their body. It's a lot for them. And we just think back to the days where we didn't have all of the press conferences and all of the media. Maybe it isn't that much worse than it used to be. Maybe we just know more about it.
yep, yeah. Well, yeah, we may, but you still got me?
Yeah, you came back.
Wow. Sorry, people, about that. I was writing a channel or something and it just disappeared. So uh, I'll finish this way. There's a big subject coming that everyone is not talking about. Even my great friend Patrick Maratoglu, nobody seems to bring this up, and it needs to be talked about on Instagram, Facebook, anything live. It needs to be talked about so the amateur player really truly understands this, and player development as well. Internal and external mental thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not being covered. And that's one of our big subjects coming down the wire. Allow everyone to start to understand and help. And you're going to have to stay tuned because I'm not going to feed you that now because we have no time.
Exactly. When we covered that, we have an episode of 10 Minutes of Tennis last year talking
We
about
do.
that specifically.
We do.
So we've touched that topic,
We
but
do.
we will cover more coming up. That is true. Well, Justin Yo, I
Yes.
appreciate
Yes.
it. And we will dive deeper into this over the next few months. Thank you, sir. This has been 10 Minutes of Tennis with Justin Yo, Australian in Puerto Rico. Thank you, sir. We'll see you next week.